Coming up this weekend at featherweight, one of my favorite fights of the weekend, we have SeungWoo Choi, and he's looking to go out there and put on an impressive performance against Kuya Joshua Culibao. And Matt, I look at this song and I think about, SeungWoo Choi, I think about Sting, and I think about there's a little black dot on the sun today. I'm a big fan of the Police. I love listening to their music, and I realistically think about this one as...
You said that like a robot.
This is really a clash of strikers here. I mean, you look at...
listening to music.
SeungWoo Choi does a great job of mixing.
You cray.
He can mix his martial arts very, very well. And when I consider his fight that he had against one of those poor old Mokhtarian brothers, he was really able to do it. I mean, Ashkar Mokhtarian was just crossed up the whole damn time. It was like he could only dribble with his left hand, and SeungWoo Choi's out here just spinning the basketball on one
how
finger.
Wayne Gretzky and his brother, if you combine their points, they would still have the most points of any brother. That's kind of like that.
Brent, he played for the Danbury Trashers. That's fun. But for Choi, he won that fight. Two judges scored it 29-26. One had it 29-25. Fence grab took a point from SeungWoo Choi in the first round. But for Choi, it's been such an interesting ride in the UFC. Like, he debuts against Movsar Evloev and loses that fight.
To be expected.
Dan Ige got his butt whooped for a couple rounds against Movsar this past weekend. Then Choi loses to Gavin Tucker in Canada. I consider that one forgivable. Goes out there and beats Mokhtarian, beats Yusuf Salal, beats Julian Rosa by finish. And then he goes out there and drops Alex Caceres, gets confused and overexcited, and then loses to Alex Caceres by submission. So for Choi, he's picking up the pieces. He's taking on Culibao, who won his first UFC fight. But for Culibao, I didn't know what kind of a fighter we were going to get coming into the UFC. Lost to Jalen Turner, but that's one that's forgivable. Drawn his record against Charles Jourdain, where he loses considerably at the start of that fight, and then Jourdain's like, what's this guy still doing in this fight? I don't know what to do. And then his last time out a year ago, Culibao beat Shayulan Nordambeka by decision. And for Nordambeka, this was the big point, Matt. The guy went 2 of 9 on takedown attempts because I'm a wrestler and I only know how to wrestle but not strike, and Culibao was able to take advantage of that. So for Culibao, very good striker. For Choi, very good striker. Kulibao's good on the back foot, and he can switch stances, great counters. Choi is great with his forward pressure, and one of the fighters that I love because he understands how to use his length and his height in his fights, and I like that.
He does, and this is a very well-matched fight between these two guys, because for Culibao, he has great defensive wrestling, and I do expect SeungWoo Choi at some point to start shooting for takedowns, because for SeungWoo Choi, he's almost like D'Angelo Russell. He does the hard things very well, but some of the easier things, you're kind of surprised that he's not able to do in his fights, and he will lack composure at some points, really throughout all of his fights. Like, his defensive grappling against Gavin Tucker was a huge problem for him. He was not able to keep up with the work rate of Gavin Tucker, and you could tell he was just a step behind in most of the grappling sequences throughout that fight, and the same thing could be said even in the Alex Caceres fight. And Alex Caceres is not a grappler.
What about the Movsar Evloev fight?
Okay. Here's the thing. Most people are going to get out-grappled by Movsar Evloev.
Call back. Movsar was the king of pain in that fight.
Yeah, he beat the brakes off poor SeungWoo Choi, but that's the thing. SeungWoo Choi's losses are two fairly good fighters. Gavin Tucker, a very well-rounded fighter. Alex Caceres, sort of the forever gatekeeper to the top 15, the 16th ranked featherweight, if you will. And for SeungWoo Choi, when it does look good, it does look very good. He is able to strike into the clinch, go for takedowns, and when he is able to get offensive takedowns, he looks really good in that top position. He has good ground and pound, and he will threaten with submissions somewhat, but he is much more just trying to get into that half guard, trying to get you softened up with some of his own ground and pound, but I don't think he's going to be able to get the takedown on Culibao. I really don't. I honestly think Culibao could even get his own offensive takedown in this matchup, because at range it'll be interesting. The power of Culibao might keep SeungWoo Choi from engaging with him all that much on the inside, but I do think that if Culibao isn't answering a lot with his own power shots, if he's playing almost like a Uriah Hall type of game where he just finds himself waiting and waiting and waiting, that's when SeungWoo Choi can build a huge lead early on in this fight, because SeungWoo Choi might not be the best defensive grappler, might not be the best defensive striker, but he does have a fairly steady work rate throughout his fights, so I do expect him to have the similar success that he has in the first round. He'll be able to have it in the third as well.
And I'll throw it up there on the screen for Joshua Culibao, training out of Igor MMA in the camp in the last couple of weeks. Jamie Mullerkey a part of it. Martin Wynn, former One Championship champ, in and around these weight classes, 155, 145. You look at it for Choi, he was originally supposed to take on Tucker Lutz not that long ago, and I'll throw that one up there. He had the longest bit of text in an Instagram post I've ever seen, so I translated it, and he basically said at the end of it, to boil it down and put it in English, that he had a minor injury, but he just couldn't make it anyway. Short recovery time. So I'm not too worried about Choi recovering from injury, making it into this fight against Culibao. We look at the odds for this fight. Choi opened to minus 250, minus 238 right now. Culibao open to plus 210, plus 191 or thereabouts. We have a look at the Topology vote. Surprise to us there, to you, but I'm going to say over under 75% SeungWoo Choi.
I think they'll be over.
Think they're going to be over. They are over. 734 total votes, 83% Choi, 42% by decision, 49% by knockout. For the 17% that have Culibao, 65% by decision, 24% by knockout. 49% of fans think SeungWoo Choi is going to knock out Joshua Culibao. I think Joshua Culibao was made in a lab where they make the Beyond Meat $2 steaks. But those Beyond Meat $2 steaks, they don't exist. They don't make them for $2. Unless you get them on sale or on clearance. But Matt, I do like SeungWoo Choi. Again, you mentioned the work rate. He's a very precise striker. And there's not a lot of wasted movement out of SeungWoo Choi. Good in and out. He's not really a big side-to-side movement type of guy. But I do like his footwork nonetheless. But I like Choi in this, although I do think it's a very well-matched fight.
It is going to be a phenomenal fight, I think, and this is what I'll say. I think SeungWoo Choi is going to win this fight against Culibao, but I don't know if he does any one thing well enough to ever get into the rankings. Again, he might look phenomenal in this fight, and I'll completely change my opinion, but I do think he will have to sort of sharpen that one area of his game that he's going to decide, okay, this is what I can go to when the going gets tougher. This is what I can always fall back on, because, again, his wrestling is good but not great. His striking is good but not great. He doesn't really specialize in any one area, so if he is able to develop his striking a little bit more, develop his grappling a little bit more, maybe we will talk about him as a future top 15 or ranked fighter, but as of right now, I like him in this matchup, but I do think he has a limited ceiling.
Both of us going with Team Mad's own Sting, SeungWoo Choi, to get the win and starting up a brand new day. I really do like this fight at 145. We get some big fights at the top of this card. Title fight at 125, title fight at 205. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say.
Let's get into it.